The transformation from victim to killer doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a gradual descent, a series of seemingly small decisions that each feel justified in isolation, but together create a path toward something unthinkable. For Mahek Bukhari, that transformation began on January 15, 2022, when Saqib Hussein's blackmail demands crossed a line that would change everything. The message arrived at 2:17 a.m., captured forever in the digital evidence that would later convict her. Saqib wasn't just threatening to expose her mother's affair anymore. He was demanding $3,000 immediately, threatening to send intimate photos to her father, her extended family, and worst of all, to post them publicly on social media where her 120,000 followers would see them. For someone whose entire identity was built around a carefully curated online image, this wasn't just blackmail. It was a threat to destroy everything she had worked to build. But what happened next reveals the dark psychology of social media obsession taken to its ultimate extreme. Instead of seeking help from authorities, instead of finding legal solutions to their blackmail problem, Mahek made a decision that would transform her from victim to predator. She decided that the only way to protect her perfect online life was to eliminate the threat permanently. The same skills that had made her a successful influencer, her ability to research, to plan, to coordinate across multiple platforms, were now being turned toward a much darker purpose. Mahek began what she would later describe as gathering intelligence on Saqib Hussein. She studied his social media profiles with the same intensity she once used to analyze viral trends. She learned his routines, his habits, his friends, his vulnerabilities. Through Instagram stories and Snapchat locations, she tracked his movements. Through TikTok comments and Twitter interactions, she mapped his social connections. Through LinkedIn and Facebook, she discovered his work schedule and personal relationships. What had started as defensive research was quickly becoming something more sinister, a comprehensive surveillance operation conducted entirely through social media platforms. But Mahek knew she couldn't handle this alone. The same way she had built her online brand through collaboration and networking, she began recruiting accomplices for what she was starting to think of as her most important project yet. The first person she approached was her own mother, Ansreen, whose affair had started this entire crisis. The conversation, recorded in part through voice messages that would later be recovered by investigators, reveals how Mahek presented her plan. She didn't talk about murder, not at first. Instead, she framed it as a business problem that needed a business solution. Saqib was threatening their brand, their livelihood, their family's reputation. Traditional solutions weren't working. They needed to think outside the box. Ansreen, consumed by guilt over her affair and terrified of the consequences of exposure, was surprisingly receptive to her daughter's increasingly radical suggestions. The same woman who had appeared in dozens of TikTok videos promoting family values and traditional morality was now actively participating in planning what would become a murder conspiracy. But two people weren't enough for what Mahek had in mind. She needed more help, and she found it in the most modern way possible, through social media networking. Using encrypted messaging apps and private group chats, she began reaching out to friends and acquaintances, carefully testing their loyalty and their willingness to help with what she described as a family emergency. The recruitment process reveals Mahek's sophisticated understanding of social psychology and digital manipulation. She didn't ask anyone to commit murder outright. Instead, she created a series of smaller requests, each one seeming reasonable in isolation. Could someone help with transportation? Could someone be available for support during a difficult family situation? Could someone help her feel safer during a confrontation with someone who was threatening her family? By February 1st, Mahek had assembled what prosecutors would later call a murder squad of 8 people, including her mother, her boyfriend, and several family friends. None of them, according to their later testimony, fully understood what they were being recruited for. Each person knew only their small part of a larger plan that Mahek was orchestrating like a social media campaign, with multiple moving parts and carefully coordinated timing. The plan itself was as sophisticated as any viral marketing strategy Mahek had ever created. She would lure Saqib and his friend Hashim to a meeting under the pretense of paying the blackmail money. The meeting would take place in a public location, making it seem safe and legitimate, but instead of paying, Mahek and her accomplices would confront Saqib, intimidate him into deleting all evidence of the affair, and force him to sign an agreement never to contact their family again. At least, that was the plan she shared with most of her accomplices. But digital evidence recovered from her devices tells a different story. In private messages with her closest confidants, Mahek was discussing much more permanent solutions to their problem. She researched methods of intimidation that had escalated into discussions of violence. She looked up legal penalties for blackmail versus other crimes, as if calculating which risk was worth taking. The most chilling evidence came from her search history during this period. Mixed in with her usual queries about fashion trends and TikTok algorithms were searches for how to delete digital evidence, can deleted messages be recovered by police, and what happens if someone dies in car accident. The same digital curiosity that had made her successful as an influencer was now being used to research murder. On February 8th, just 3 days before the fatal confrontation, Mahek made the call that would seal Saqib Hussein's fate. Using a voice disguise app, the same type of technology she used to create content for TikTok, she contacted Saqib directly. She claimed to be a mediator, someone who could help resolve the situation between him and her mother. She proposed a meeting where all parties could discuss a resolution that would satisfy everyone involved. Saqib, who had been dealing with increasingly desperate and angry responses from the Bukhari family, saw this as a positive development. Finally, someone was willing to negotiate reasonably. He agreed to meet, bringing his friend Hashim along for support and safety. Neither young man had any idea that they were walking into a trap that had been set using the same social media tools they used every day to connect with friends and share their lives. The final piece of Mahek's plan involved using technology to create what she thought would be the perfect alibi. She scheduled social media posts to go live during the time of the planned confrontation, creating digital evidence that she was nowhere near the scene. She coordinated with accomplices to post photos and videos that would place her in different locations. She even planned to live stream parts of her evening, creating real-time evidence of her innocence. But the most revealing aspect of Mahek's planning was how she documented it. Despite knowing she was planning a crime, she couldn't resist treating it like any other project in her life. She created group chats to coordinate logistics. She sent voice messages outlining responsibilities. She even took screenshots of maps and timing schedules, the same way she might plan a complex TikTok collaboration. This compulsive documentation, born from years of sharing every aspect of her life online, would ultimately become the evidence that convicted her. The same social media habits that had made her famous were creating a digital trail that investigators would follow straight to her door. By February 10th, everything was in place. The meeting was scheduled for the next evening. The accomplices were briefed on their roles. The alibis were prepared. Mahek Bukhari, TikTok star and social media expert, believed she had planned the perfect crime using the same skills that had made her an online success. But she had made one crucial miscalculation. The same technology that had enabled her planning and coordination was also creating an indelible record of everything she had done. Every message, every search, every coordination call was being preserved in digital form, waiting to be discovered by investigators who were far more skilled at digital forensics than she had anticipated. In our next episode, we'll follow Saqib and Hashim as they drive to what they think is a peaceful meeting, unaware that they're heading straight into a trap that will claim both their lives. We'll see how Mahek's carefully planned confrontation spiraled out of control, turning from intimidation into a high-speed chase that ended in flames and tragedy.